and gentlemen, let's get excited. Our next segment is all about getting inspired. Preksha, do you want to tell them more?
Definitely, I'd love to. Well, we are about to take off. So, apni kursi ki peti tightly bandh le because something exciting is coming up. And for this exciting moment, can we first please play the inspiration video? This is the moment we are all so excited for. And I would like to invite on stage Shefali Arora, Head of Personal Care, CMI India, and leads Global Lux and Lifebuoy for Hindustan Unilever Limited. Shefali is a curious researcher with a passion for business growth through people and culture insights. She loves solving business problems and finds solution in human aspect across the fast evolving world around us. Before we start, we would also like to thank our segment partners, Amazon, Datamatics, and Vision for making this possible. A huge round of applause for Shefali, everyone.
Shefali, over to you.
I just want to check if I'm audible. Yeah, this is working. Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. It's a privilege to bring to you the next segment, The King's Gambit, Chess, Strategy, and Success. Before I introduce the legend, I want to share a little story that we learned from him yesterday. Picture this. A quiet boy is sitting in the classroom and witnessing a paper plane fight amongst the boys around him. He sits back patiently and even takes a few hits. Now slowly, yet very methodically, he folds the paper and aims his paper plane really well. Of course, it hits the target. Only that, now the other boys around him have stopped playing. He's wondering what is going on until someone taps on his shoulder and he hears the school principal's voice saying, "Anand, of all the people, you?" Well, that's a story Vishwanathan Anand himself narrated to us yesterday. It was indeed an innocent story, but he did have a glint of nostalgia and mischief in his eyes while he did so. It is an honor to introduce the true legend of chess world today to you. Anand's journey to the pinnacle of chess has been nothing short of extraordinary. He became India's first Grandmaster in the year 1988, and since then, he has been a trailblazer for Indian chess. Known for his rapid playing style, he earned the nickname Lightning Kid early in his career. Over the years, Anand has amassed an impressive array of titles, including 5 World Chess Championships, 2 World Rapid Chess Championships, and 2 Chess World victories. In the year 2000, Anand won the FIDE World Chess Championship, becoming the first Asian to hold the title. He went on to become the undisputed World Chess Champion in the year 2000. His peak FIDE rating at 2,817, achieved in March 2011, is the 8th highest of all time. Anand's contribution to chess has extended beyond his personal achievements. He has played a pivotal role in popularizing the game in India, inspiring countless young players to take up chess. In recognition of his contributions, he has been awarded numerous honors, including the Padma Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian award. Currently serving as the Deputy President of the FIDE, he continues to influence the world of chess with his wisdom and experience. We met him yesterday for the first time, and we were awestruck by his humility and authenticity. He told us that in school, his vice principal found out about the genius that he was through the newspaper. Such was his humility since the very beginning. But the fun part was that that day the vice principal decided to felicitate him at the school assembly. Only that day, Anand decided to bunk the assembly to complete his homework. Well, I think he told us these anecdotes only to humanize himself and put us at ease. And people, it is really interesting that we have all gathered here today at the MRSI in the honor of his presence. It is quite coincidental that MRSI itself was founded in the year 1988, the same year when Anand won his first Grandmaster title. Please join me in welcoming the legend himself, Vishwanathan Anand.
Audience, please note, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the chat. So do not miss the opportunity to email your questions at info@mrsi.co.in. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. I would love to hear a little more about your own journey and your achievements in your words, sir.
Okay, so I'm the youngest in my family. I have an elder brother and sister. And when I was 6 years old, they were playing chess. And of course, like the youngest, I wanted to join in. So I went and pestered my mother. Luckily, my mother was a chess player, so she was able to teach me the rules very quickly. And over the next few months, I think my family must have observed that it wasn't just a one-off thing. I mean, you know, kids will change their mind about everything, but I kept going back to the chessboard. Luckily, near my sister's school, her college, there was a chess club. Turned out to be India's best chess club at that point, the Tal Chess Club. So I was taken there, and I remember my mother came along for the first day to make sure, because after all, I was, 6, 7, and everybody else was much older, so she came to make sure. There was a man who assured her that there'd be no problem, they'll keep an eye on me, and so I started to play chess. I mentioned this because there are some fortunate coincidences. 40 years ago, if you didn't have someone in your immediate circle who knew how to play chess, you wouldn't be able to learn the game. There might be one library which sells that one book, or one bookstore which sells that one book which tells you, or but it wasn't easy to find these things out. Now we live in a world where you can just search for the rules in 2 seconds and find an app probably that you can practice against, but that wasn't there then. The second happy coincidence was this fantastic chess club. A third one was when my father was posted for an ADB job in the Philippines, where chess was doing very, very well, and so on. So these happy coincidences were there. I would go to this chess club every Monday, every Thursday evening, and every Sunday, and play chess. So I'd finish all my homework on Saturday so that I could spend the whole of Sunday playing chess. Chess was simply 5-minute games. And we had a kind of big group of 10 or 12 people. 2 people would play. The loser would get up and get in the queue. The winner would keep playing. Eventually, I figured out that it was a good idea to win, so I got better at it, and I was often at the receiving end, because after a while everyone gets impatient and they start to gang up on you, but I was improving. And this early stage, I'll finish by saying I'd been a very strong junior for 3 or 4 years, and in 83, I still had a miracle summer holiday where I just won everything. I mean, I was the same player playing the same opponents like I had done for many months, but suddenly I started to win everything. I went to the national team championship, then I qualified for the national B championship, then for the main men's event, and within a space of 7 or 8 months, I was national sub-junior champion, national junior champion, and I had actually made it to the men's team. This was very unexpected. I I mean, I didn't see it coming, but I think what happens is where you spend a lot of time training, and then at some point, maybe there's a critical mass or something, and then so that was my breakthrough year.
Fantastic, fantastic. Sir, I have been actually fascinated by the role that your family and in particular your mother has played in supporting your entire journey. Could you talk us through a bit about her role in your achievements and success?
Of course, I think it's fair to say the single biggest reason I'm a chess player is my mother. So as I mentioned, she knew the rules, which is a big head start. And she would accompany me to many tournaments all through my youth. So I mentioned the Philippines. There are some nice stories there. As soon as we arrived, my mother started to look for a chess circle, but it was very hard. But she knew that Asia's first Grandmaster was a person called Eugene Torre, and he lived in Manila. So my mother picked up the phone book. She didn't know anyone. She picked up the phone book and tried a few Torres and eventually hit. And I mean, this is the equivalent of dialing every Kumar or something like that. So anyway, so my mother did that, and she hit the jackpot quickly. But then she told him, my son is a huge fan of yours, and he thinks, is there any way he can meet you, and things like that. And he said, no, I'm actually Eugene's elder brother, but I can tell you the name of a good chess club. So that's kind of how I got started. And they had another nice thing, which is they had a daily TV program on chess. So this would last for 1 hour, during which time they would take a game played from somewhere around the globe and show it to you with some commentary. So they'd explain why certain choices were made and so on, and they would do this. And at the end of the show, they would give a little puzzle that you had to solve. And you had to mail in your answers to the studio. And they would take all the correct answers, put them in a box, and at the end of the next show, they would pull out one letter and say, okay, this person can come to our show next time. And the prize was a chess book. Now, of course, I was in school, so my mother would write down every game they showed. So she'd write down the notation and all the commentary. Then she would note down the puzzle. When I got back home from school, after I finished any homework, my mother would show me the game. Then she would show me the puzzle. We would solve it, and then she would send in the answer. So a few times I started to win the prize, and I started to collect a few books. And within some time, I remember I went to the studio to collect my prize again, and they told me, actually come with us. They took me to a back room, and there was a huge library. They said, you can take 10 or 20 books if you want, but please don't send any more replies, because it seems like you're the only one participating. So I said, okay, that's a very good deal, and I did this. So this is nice. In fact, these books I still keep, and I mean, it's old chess books, and by today's standards, they're not at the cutting edge at all. I mean, there are some truths there, but in 1979, 1980, this was fantastic material for a youngster, and I brought it back. And my mother continued to accompany me everywhere till I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
And after that, I think my parents decided that I should start traveling alone, which is also which I kind of appreciate. I think it's a nice thing, and I started traveling alone. But she would insist, I need a phone call from you after you arrive. I need a phone call when it finishes. You have to tell me the result. And of course, when that was not possible, I still have some postcards which I mailed, and they would get it 6 days later and so on. But anyway, that's all.
Lovely, lovely stories. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now a bit about your game. Decision making. According to you, how much of it is intuition and how much of it is calculation?
Okay, first of all, there is something, maybe an inclination or an aptitude for chess that people do have, because it's clear you will meet a lot of juniors, but some will progress faster, some will take in information much easier, and they'll grasp the content much faster. So there is something that you're born with. As I said, inclination, orientation is probably the right word. But everything else is learnt. You play one game, you play 3 or 4. Typically, either the harsh lesson or the success imprints itself, the rest you might forget. But each story kind of has a memory that you then remember and helps you recall that thing. So then you realize that, okay, this strategy is bad because of this is good because of this, and so on. And then you can separate it later in life. I mean, your strength as a chess player is entirely the sum collection of all the games you've seen, the games you've played, the thoughts you've had, it's just the accumulation. So I like to say it this way: calculation is the skill you know you have, because you know how to work, you know how to calculate, and you know how to produce an answer at the end. Intuition is the work that you have forgotten you have done. You look at a position and instantly a move will suggest itself. It's not likely that we are geniuses who can scan a position in. We will, it's just over all these years we accumulated a certain sense, and that comes as a intuitive thought in your mind. They have measured this, by the way. There are famous studies where they would show 40 positions to chess players of varying levels, so club players and grandmasters, and then take away the things and ask them to recall those 40 positions. The grandmasters generally would do 100%, 40 out of 40, or some higher number, and they think. The casual players and all would score much lower. But it's not that the grandmasters have a photographic memory, far from it. What they used to find was that then somebody had the clever idea. One researcher, he said, well, let me just show some nonsensical positions to them. And when they did that, when the positions didn't make sense, the grandmaster's recall dropped because the position didn't make sense. So then it was clear that what you're taking in is connections. When this bishop is here and this knight is here, then it's like my game here, so bing, you remember it, and so on. So again, it gives you a sense of how intuition works in chess. And so it's a combination of memory of the position, memory of the structure, but some stories and other things, and the brain sort of puts it together and throws it out.
Amazing. And I mean, trust researchers to measure anything, right? This is truly is amazing for the bunch here. And I'm sure in your journey there must have been many setbacks. How do you show up so consistently each time is something we would like to learn from you.
It's never enjoyable. I mean, nobody ever gets better at coping with losing. 40 years later, it's exactly the same. Maybe it's even worse. But first of all, there are practical considerations. If I have played and lost a game today, and I have my next game tomorrow, then I kind of have to come to terms with it. I mean, over time, I've evolved an approach where I give myself half an hour to an hour to moan and complain and get it over with. But then you have to have the discipline that, okay, now we push this aside and I get ready for the next game, because you figure out, or eventually you figure out, that losing tomorrow doesn't make you feel any better about today. So it's a practical thing. If you have a game tomorrow, then you have that discipline. And an average junior might have played 400, 500 competitive games already. So someone at the age of 15 might well have done so many. So they've built up a certain amount of experience. And trust me, each junior has done things where they've lost 3 games in a row and realized, okay, that is much worse than losing one, I've got to stop, and so on. So you have some discipline. Coping with the failure in a tournament, it's slightly different, where in a sense you get to go back home and everything is a bit longer. You need 3 to 4 days to forget about it, the disappointment. But then there are lessons to be learned. You have to go over what you executed badly, what are the good opportunities you spoiled, what are the bad ones, and how do you get better at that. And so you'll pull manuals and so. It can be cathartic that the very process of learning how to do something better makes you feel slightly thing. And then the next time you have to remember to come back. And then there are the times when suddenly for 6 or 7 months, despite doing everything that I've described in the first 2 examples, for 6 or 7 months, nothing you do improves your score. That's happened to me on many, many occasions. And those are the most serious, because it's telling you something fundamental is wrong. And typically it's emotional. Either you have unrealistic expectations, or you have too low, you're misjudging yourself, you're putting too much pressure on yourself, maybe you're feeling pressure from other people, something like that. And those problems tend to be a bit more serious. Or it could be a chess problem that you've ignored for too long and it's kind of accumulated and it's not easy to get past it. In this case, once again, you can work for a very long amount of time, and you feel you're getting nowhere, and then one day the train comes out of the tunnel, so to speak, and your results improve and everything changes. Over time, I've become calmer about this because I know that there will be an end, but I think the first time it must have been a scary one.
Wow. Talking about calmness, I think the one striking thing about you has been your calm demeanor. How do you manage it around opponents in and outside of the game?
Look, I can remember it like it was yesterday. My mother telling me, Dave, when you go there, don't get excited and show all your thoughts in your face. You have to keep it secret from your opponent. I must have been 6 or 7, and she said this like it is the most obvious thing. But so the first thing is, I take that as an acknowledgement that I'm very good at acting. It's mostly, inside we have all the turmoil going. You can be worried about any number of things, either chess related or non-chess related. Your thoughts can wander all over the place. But also very simply, even on a good day, you will go there not knowing for certain what you're going to do. You have prepared a couple of options, and that you will go to the board and then see which one is best. And you might get lucky and your strategy works out, but more likely your opponent has anticipated that and comes up with something else, then you go through all that. But somehow it was hardwired into me to just keep a face and not show any emotions and things. So it's an act, essentially. It's an act. You think eventually you weaken a bit. You might get up from your board and walk for a few steps, and then I think people can tell when you're relieved and when you're worried and things like that. But you don't, so to speak, lay out your cards very well. I think people who know me well know that when my nails start to go under the hammer, then that's I don't like my position, and there's a lot of uncertainty left, and they know when I'm completely calm, and so you get better at reading your opponents even if they're not showing everything. And finally, I have also met a lot of chess players who follow the opposite strategy, which is to show every emotion, including the ones they don't feel. That's the chess version of fake news. They pretend to be happy when they're sad. They pretend to. I played juniors who they're like this. Oh my God, what have I done, and so on. And then you make the move they expect you to make, and then they pounce and do the guy. So I've seen the gamut of strategies. But anyway, my strategy is the poker face. So
yeah, we have terrible actors and then we have wonderful actors, is how I would take it. Amazing, amazing. And so there's so much of attention and limelight around you. How have you maintained this very signature, authentic style of yours? You always show up with your full self, and how have you managed to just stay away from controversies?
At some point, I noticed that controversies didn't help me. Like if I had an argument or we had said something about each other in the press and there was some tension in the air, I found that it was hard for me to push that out of my mind and play calmly. So over time, I moved to the strategy that I associated with, which is to be calm, to not dislike my opponent too much, which means not picking fights with people and all that, and just go to the game in the most neutral emotional state, focus my energy there and think. And I found that that works well for me. So I think I also try to create the circumstances for that to work. Which is not to say that I don't hate some chess players, I don't like some chess players. I can spend an evening with some Schadenfreude like the best of them, but at the board I try to keep it as neutral as possible. And just like in the previous example, there are others who, if they're not arguing in the morning with their opponent, they can't play very well because they focus differently. So each one follows what they think works for them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We'll shift a little towards what's happening now. And I think in the world of chess, it's not happening now, it's been happening for a while, which is the ever-changing technology that's at your disposal. How have the methods in the game changed, and you've seen the evolution throughout, and what challenges have you faced, and how do you look at, what's your outlook to technology when it comes to chess?
So the first chess database came when I was 17 years old. So I had just become world junior champion. I was trying for my Grandaaster title, and the first chess database came. Now what did that mean? That suddenly your suitcase got lighter. Instead of 20 magazines with printed games, everything could fit on your laptop. But of course, in '87, it was a different time. So I remember my sister bought me a laptop because she lived in the States. But then I would leave it with my friend in Amsterdam, come home because I didn't want to pay 250% duty. I would come home, then I would always fly via Amsterdam to wherever I was playing, go to my friend's house, pick up the computer, use it in some strange stuff. But anyway, then my father knew someone who happened to be in the sports ministry, and he said, I'll put the application through to give him an exemption, whatever. So initially for the first 3 years, it was a database, which was again already redistributed or changed the landscape a bit. There were chess players who had fantastic libraries. They would organize their books. They would index the stuff well. They would say this player's games are on page 23, on page 27, on page 35, 55, and have index cards they would put it into all their books. And so when they needed to prepare for one opponent, they would pick up a book and see where that opponent's name came, and they would look it up, and that way they could be very efficient in it. Suddenly, technology took away that strength from them. I could search for it on the computer very fast. So initially you could see that the players who were the best prepared before that suddenly were not the best prepared after that. So you can gauge its impact like this, and this is continuous. Then the first generation of chess playing engines came along. So, and they are primitive, I mean laughably weak, but they were good at one thing, which is that at very, very short distances, so 2 to 3 moves depth, they looked at every single legal possibility. Whereas humans tend to, even if you give me a position with 40 or 50 legal moves, the process is so fast that very quickly you're only considering 3. You've rejected the other 47. And those 3 you pruned on even faster and get to 1. But sometimes there are exceptions. Some of those 47 moves might actually be a good one. So, I mean, humans have obviously a certain way of thinking, but it's a slight weakness, which as computers got better, they were showing. So initially you used the computer as a calculator. You got your basic line, and then you would input it into the computer and leave it to check for a while, come back and see if something it had spotted that some move could be different. That process then got better. The computers went from 2 to 3 moves depth to 5 or 6, then a bit further, then a bit further as each chip got higher in strength. And finally, in about 6 years after the first chess playing program came, Deep Blue famously beat Kasparov. Of course, Deep Blue was a computer that fit into a whole room of this size maybe, but kind of looking back, you knew where this was going. So within 3 years, laptops were beating humans consistently. Maybe first in the faster controls, because humans didn't have time to think, then eventually everywhere. And so the nature of work kept on shifting. If you could be good at one stage with one level of technology, and when the next one came along, you had to either adapt or find that just like that first index, the people who were good at indexes, if you didn't adapt, you missed out. By 2006, some programs came which were actually creative. So they were halfway houses. They wouldn't consider all 50 legal moves. They had a very efficient search tree where they could eliminate 25 very quickly and then concentrate on 25 and then still outperform the human, because the human is eliminating many more. And these programs almost looked creative to us, where the move had a certain logic with the rest of the position and this kind of thing. Then about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, an AI engine came, and that beat every previous generation of computer. So this was a new level. But what I say is that in our case, it's not AI which defeated us. We had been beaten 30 years ago, but it's just AI is, it's like a jet or a car, but you still can't run against either one. So the gap is huge. And the nature of chess players, the nature of coaches, the nature of everything has changed. So two things. One is the chess player's job is no longer to look for answers, it's to look for questions. That's the only thing you can do better than your rival, is to ask a different question to him, because the computer will give the same accurate answer to every question asked. So the only value you can bring is, can you ask a question that the other person might not have thought of. And this will not happen on the first level, the surface, because there are only so many legal moves. But if you go down the branches, you go down longer and longer branches, you can have more and more sophisticated questions that even come at a fundamental level, like what is the value of a bishop and what is the value of a knight, and will it work, does it work in all situations, so on. So the deeper your questions, that's your chance to differentiate. The second thing is, of course, it enabled chess to become a global sport. So once upon a time, they used to joke that if you were born in Moscow, you got a 50 rating point head start in life. And that simply meant that if you were born in Moscow, you could bump into a grandmaster on the subway, a friend would know a friend who knew where he lived, you can go and ask him for doubts, things like that. And replicate it slowly elsewhere in a few places. But if you were born in some remote place, even Australia, where they didn't have much of a chess thing, then you're cut off from everywhere else. Now the answers are available online, the questions available online, the best engines are available. So tools absolutely flattened, but the value comes in how you train, what's the kind of intelligence, what's the human input you bring in. And the second thing is, of course, it's become a global sport for another reason, which is that during the pandemic, the number of people who either always wanted to play chess but never got the time, or who came into contact with chess. By the way, it was the Queen's Gambit, unfortunately, which did it, but there was a Netflix show, but that was huge. It got like 70 million people to watch it. And again, that was a happy coincidence for chess, because if it had happened 10 years earlier, the bandwidth wouldn't have been there, the apps wouldn't have been there. But COVID was timed perfectly. 2020 was great. We had everything, the chess world was ready, and then this happened. And so technology also, it's dual. It makes everyone's cycle faster, it makes everyone's career shorter, but it's increased the popularity of the sport.
Fantastic. So indeed, technology does remain a tool, and amazing to see how in the chess world it has been way too long that it has been around, but still the power of the human mind does remain relevant. Well, Anand, you have been an inspiration to many. I mean, there's a lot of young talent today who are grandmasters already. In many ways, you have paved the way for chess in India. Please tell us, how have you managed to lift as you rise?
I think initially, from the time I became a grandmaster, and then as I was going for the world title, then I won it for the first time, then I won it 5 times. During that phase of my career, the way chess benefited was that I would keep it in the news. I would keep the spotlight on it, and this inspired a lot of people to take to the game. Then many of them went on to become grandmasters. They went on to start their own academies. And so there's a kind of chess ecosystem culture developing, and I contributed to it by focusing on chess, and of course I would try to have popularize it around that, but only what time I could spare and so on. About 5 years back, so I just turned 50, and I started to think that maybe I should start thinking of the future. And then I got an offer from a company called Westbridge Capital. They asked me if I went there to give a talk, and the CEO Sandeep, he mentioned to me that we would like to support chess. Is there something you can think of? And I thought of this idea to start an academy for our most promising youngsters. I mean, one of the questions that came up in our discussion is, why does India dominate the junior and sub-junior tournaments, all the global junior and sub-junior tournaments, but no one after me was breaking into the top. So what is the problem there? So we started a specialized academy, which is we were going to pick the most promising juniors and not ask anything from them, but see if we could make them stronger. And the idea was again for that India would have a long-term pipeline excellence, and that's a role. So I'm happy to say that Pragnananda, Gukesh, Vaishali are all from the academy. They all joined when they were 14. Vaishali is a bit older, but the others were all 14. And I can admit that I didn't expect that we'd have a world champion this quickly, but nice. And 2 years ago, I got an offer suddenly if I'd like to join the presidential ticket of President Dorkovich on the World Chess Federation. That was a bit of a stretch because my first reaction was, what am I going to do in the World Chess Federation? But at the same time, it seemed like a very nice team to be part of, and I thought, well, if I can contribute in some way, then we'll work as a team, and I'll also get to see the other side of chess, and maybe have a more complete perspective. So multiple ways.
Fantastic. So may not have been what Netflix and the Queen's Gambit did, but we have our own very King's Gambit right here in this room. Thank you so much for that. Thanks a lot. We would like to take a few questions from the audience. Mitali, do we already have them? Oh, you've sent it to me, sorry. Okay, so you've got yourself the title of the Lightning Kid. How do you manage to play the game so immaculately and yet so rapidly? What are the strategies in the rapid chess that are different from otherwise how chess is played?
The main thing is, first of all, to train yourself to think quickly as opposed to slowly. That means higher tolerance for mistakes and more flexibility. You have to be able to switch and so on. And the second quality is actually even more important, which is to take a good decision and to trust it. I mean, it's very easy to take a good decision and still think I need to check it a bit more, in which case you'll be better in the slower format. But from my days in the chess club where we sat and played 5-minute games, I had gotten used to playing quite fast. By the way, I think I'm also pretty fast in other things. I'm quite quick to come to decisions in other areas, so that's probably the main reason. But again, it's a trained approach. If you want to get good at rapid chess by the end of the year, you keep on playing daily games with sparring partners and you'll be better at it by the end of the year. So it's learning to see something very quickly, learning to trust what you saw, and this is because you have to calm yourself down and say, I'm going to trust what I saw and I'm not going to second guess it afterwards. And also to to still understand what mistakes happened and how you can push that more and more. So there's a bit of training as well, but essentially lots of practice, and that's how you do it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. It has been a pleasure listening to you, your reflections and your insights. Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We request all the management committee members to please come to the stage for a quick photo shoot. Calling all MC members on the stage for a quick photo shoot.